Hey friends, this is Karen from Blue Rooster Farm, and today we are back in our kitchen. We are going to be making up a big batch of meatballs, and I like to make a large batch because I like to use some for cooking for that evening, and then the rest I like to throw in the freezer for future use. It's so handy to have them, and they're so much more affordable than the ones you buy at the grocery store, and they are so much better. So if you want to see how I make these meatballs, and I'll be making something with them for dinner tonight, stick around. Thanks for sticking around. Well, like I said, we're going to be making meatballs today. And after we get these meatballs made, I'm going to be making something that is going to be really good for today. Right now, we are under a winter weather advisory, or actually warning, because we are going to be getting anywhere from 6 to 13 inches of snow today and tomorrow. We live up in Northeast Missouri, and you know, snow isn't uncommon, of course, but these big snows, you don't get as many of those. And when we do, we really, we've got to have everything ready because we live rurally and we need to make sure that, the animals are taken care of. We've got everything on hand at the house. So I think we're all set. We're just ready for a nice meal. Andy has been hauling the sheep to different pastures in anticipation for the storm. He's also making sure the watering systems and everything are in good shape and getting the tractor fueled up so that if we need to dig ourselves out, we can do that. So it's going to be exciting to see all the snow. We have not had but just a skiff of snow this year, and it's going to be exciting to see this. And I'm sure kids going back to school next Tuesday here are hoping probably for extra snow that will last a while, so they'll even have a longer Christmas break. Today is the Saturday after New Year's, so New Year's was Wednesday, and today is the weekend after. And as you see, I have still a lot of my Christmas things up, and I plan on leaving them up through the weekend. Next week I'll probably start taking them down, but we have no reason to hurry. During the holiday month of December, it seems like we're hustling and bustling and getting everything ready that we just don't get to enjoy the decorations, the tree, the lights. And now it's kind of nice to come home and turn all the lighting on and just relax. And, it just feels good. So we're not in any rush to get everything down, but it'll come down soon. So if you happen to see Christmas decor, that's why. So let's get started. The first thing, this is a large batch of meatballs. Now, if you want to cut it down by thirds, you can. I like to make a large batch because I want to get these in my freezer. There's so many evenings when it's just so nice to be able to pull out a few meatballs, open a can of spaghetti sauce from the pantry, and just cook a little bit of pasta and have our meal complete. Also, you can use these meatballs as appetizers. You can use them in sub sandwiches. You can use them as toppings for a pizza, Swedish meatballs, you name it. These meatballs are very handy to have on hand. And, you can just heat them up and eat them plain too. They're great. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to mix these up, and I'm going to show you what I add. There's a ton of recipes out there on how to make meatballs. And if you know me, you know that I'm the type of person that just throws things in and I don't measure. I just look at the texture because I've cooked so long and go by what we like. But of course, since I'm doing a video for you, I want to make sure that this video is something practical so that you can do the same. So I just wrote down, so measurements so that I can kind of follow those so that it'll be something that you can follow as well. There are things that you could add to these meatballs that I'm not going to add. In fact, I'm not going to make these Italian style. If you were making them Italian style, you'd be adding Italian seasonings. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to make a basic meatball, and that way we can use it with whatever types of food we want to use it with. The sauce will be the one that makes the meatball taste, you know, whether it's going to be Swedish or Italian, but the sauce will cover that. So we're going to make just a basic meatball. Now, as I go, I will tell you some things that you can do in place of some things and things that you can leave out, but these are very forgiving, so don't hesitate to try something new. Just kind of keep it so that the meat and the eggs and the breading are kind of the same ratio. So what we're going to do is I am starting off with 3 pounds of ground meat. Now, you can use whatever kind of ground meat you have on hand. You might have venison, ground turkey, ground chicken, pork, beef, whatever you have on hand is fine. I chose, because I had on hand a pound of ground round, a pound of ground burger, and a pound of just sausage, and it's just like Bob Evans sausage, I think, and that's what I'm using. But you can use whatever base meat you like. But again, we're getting ready for a storm. I'm not going to go out to the grocery store to buy something special for this. I'm just using what I have on hand, like I always do when I cook. So I'm going to use my mixer. Now, you don't have to use your mixer, use your hands. I just prefer, if I've got this mixer to do that work, that's fine. I don't like to be picking the meat out from under my fingernails. So I'm going to be using this. So here we go. So into my big mixer bowl, and some mixer bowls, this is a pretty big mixer. This is one of the bigger sizes. Won't be able to hold quite as much as I'm making today. So just make sure that your mixer bowl can handle it if you're using it. So I'm putting in my 3 pounds of thawed meat. And I'm just going to give that a little whir so we can get those meats incorporated together. Okay, that's good to get us started. Then to our meat, I am going to add 3 eggs. And I usually go 1 egg per pound of meat. That's usually what I do. So let's crack these up. 1, 2, and 3. And I'm going to give that a little whir. Okay, those eggs are nicely incorporated. Now I've got some breadcrumbs here, and I'm going to put a little video to show you how I do my breadcrumbs right here. If you don't have breadcrumbs, you can use all sorts of different things. You can use you can use purchased croutons that you've crumbled up. You can use panko, you can use oatmeal, you can use crackers. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can use. And really, this is just a binder, and it's also something to keep the meats moist. So you need to have something like this in there to keep them from falling apart and to keep them moist. But there's a whole bunch of different options, and you'll see in all sorts of meatball recipes how they use different things. I am going to use breadcrumbs, and this is from fresh bread. Well, it's older bread that's been in my refrigerator that I have done, and I'm just going to put a video right here or here showing how I just throw it in the food processor and I make it that way. But I just for this recipe, I think it's usually about a half a cup per pound. So let me think what I've written down here. I've put down here a cup of fresh breadcrumbs. I'd say between a cup and a cup and a half for 3 pounds of meat. And I'm just going to use big handfuls. Like I said, I don't usually measure. And then look and see what it looks like. Now, another thing with the bread, if you don't have as much meat and you're trying to stretch your burger or your ground meat, you know, people used to use, breadcrumbs, oatmeal, things like that to make their meat go further. So you could always add a little more. It is going to change the taste and texture a little bit, but if you need to stretch that dollar and stretch your meat, by all means do that. So we've got our breadcrumbs mixed in, and now I am going to add, I have some chopped onions. Now, if you don't like the texture of onions in your meatballs, you can put this in a food processor and you can get it really smooth and just pour it in there. You can use onion powder or granulated onion or anything like that. But I just chopped my onion really fine. If you don't like onion, don't add onion. It's up to you. Again, these meatballs can be made many ways, but I really feel like you need the flavor from some of these vegetables and seasonings to make it really taste good. But do it the way you like it. I'm using, this was a half of a large onion. And so this is probably about, this is a half a cup container here. So I'm thinking it's about 3/4 cup. And I'm pouring that into mine. Then I'm going to also include some fresh parsley. Again, you don't have to use fresh, you can use dried. I've got about 1/4 cup of, my parsley is frozen, but I froze it fresh and I just chopped it up in small pieces. And so it's wilted down quite a bit because of the freezing process. But if you were doing it with fresh parsley, you would probably want to add, maybe a half a cup, not packed down, but a half a cup of parsley. I'm using about 1/4 cup, and this is going in, and this has been kind of pressed down in here, so it is quite a bit of parsley. If you don't have fresh or frozen, use a big tablespoon of parsley that's dried, or 2 tablespoons depending on your taste. And let's stir that one up. I find that parsley is pretty subtle as an herb, so I don't mind adding that to a plain basic meatball. It doesn't have to be Italian. Then we're going to add some garlic, and I've got 3 garlic cloves right here. And if you want to add granulated garlic or already minced garlic, I'd say a tablespoon if you like garlic, less if you don't. But it's all up to your taste. And as you know, in my previous videos, I've never had anything with too much garlic. I'm sure there's something out there, but we like the taste of garlic here. And the health benefits are really good for you too. So there we have 3 cloves of minced garlic. And let me get those in the pot and let me whir those around. And I mix every time I add something because this takes a little more effort to mix, and that way I know everything's incorporated as I mix it in. Okay, that's all mixed in nicely. Now we are going to add a half a cup of Parmesan. This is just grated Parmesan, you know, Kraft Parmesan. If you have any of the shredded or any kind that's fancier, that's fine to put it into, but just the stuff out of the can works great. Then we're going to add a little bit of Worcestershire sauce. And I'm going to go with a tablespoon or two. I think I'll just do a big tablespoon. And just sprinkle it around there. So you could say a teaspoon per pound, because 3 teaspoons is 1 tablespoon. Then we're going to add some pepper, and I'm going to add, you know, just whatever you like. I think I will put a teaspoon of pepper in. Now I'm going to add a little salt, but I've added the sausage, which already is salted, and remember we added all that Parmesan cheese. So when it comes to the salt, you're going to have to decide how much salt you want to add. I think I'm going to add probably not quite a teaspoonful, because we do have 3 pounds of meat in there. 1 pound is salted, 2 pounds are unsalted. The cheese will help, but we'll add just like a half a teaspoon per the other 2 ground meats. You can always add more salt after they're cooked and salt your own plate, but you can't take it out, so don't overdo the salt. And then I'm going to add, now you can use milk or you can use broth or you could use water if you wanted to, a little bit of liquid. Not much, and you can kind of tell depending on how your meat looks. I think I'm just going to add like a tablespoon maybe or 2. Maybe 2 tablespoons of liquid. And if you get it too soupy, you can always add some more breadcrumbs. And since my bread was not dry breadcrumbs, I don't have to add as much. If you're adding something like oats or you're adding dried breadcrumbs, you may find that you need to add more, but I don't need to add nearly as much. Now the liquid does keep your meatballs nice and moist. The last thing we're gonna add, and you don't have to add this, is just a little bit of crushed red pepper, and that just gives it just a little bit of something. You're not gonna say it's spicy or too hot to eat, but it's just gonna have a little bit of a kick. So I am going to add probably 1/4 of a teaspoon to this big old batch of meat. You can add as much or as little as you like. So as you see, I don't have any basil, I don't have any oregano, I don't have any of those Italian ingredients in here. But if you wanted to make this Italian meatballs, add some basil, whether it's fresh or dried, add some oregano, you might add a little bit of rosemary, whatever seasonings you like. You can just use your Italian seasoning and add a tablespoon or 2 of that, whatever you like in your meatballs. But again, I'm keeping mine kind of basic, that you can change up with whatever sauce you're using. So let's mix that pepper in, and then we're ready to form it into balls. All right, let's take a look at it. Now, I will say that I think this works out better with leaner meats. Maybe one of them can be a little less lean, but if you have high fat meats, they're going to cook down to very small meatballs because the fat will be rendered out. So you might consider using higher lean meats. I had the package of ground round, which was very lean, and I also had a package of, I don't know if it was 90-10 or maybe 85-15. I can't remember, but it was pretty lean. All right, let's move this out of the way. And I've brought a washcloth over to keep my hands from getting too yucky. And I'm just gonna stir to see what kind of consistency we have. And I'm gonna pick up a ball, and yep, it forms nicely. So there is what our balls are going to look like. Let me clear this out, and I've got some cookie sheets that have a lip on them, because you do need to have a lip because they are going to let off juices. Cookie sheets that are lined in foil and not sprayed or anything like that. And we're gonna be putting those on these meatballs on cookie sheets and baking them in the oven. Much faster and much easier. So I'll be right back. All right, we are back. It's just been a second for you, but I had a little detour in behind the scenes. I am making Italian bread to go along with tonight's dinner. So I just realized my bread had finished its first rise and needed to be shaped into loaves. And so I got that done. If you're interested in how I do Italian French bread, I'll put a link, if I can remember, right up here to a video. It was my blueberry French toast recipe, I believe, that had the recipe that I used and showed how to make French bread if you're interested. And that French bread's gonna taste really good tonight. All right, so I've got my I've done 2 pans. We'll see how many we need. Cookie sheet pans, again, you do need to have a lip. I've lined them in foil just because I don't like to clean them up. Sometimes that can get kind of baked on. And I've got a little scoop here to try to get even sized meatballs. And so what I'm gonna do is just scoop a little and then put them together. And that way I can make these up really quickly. And you can put them pretty close together, that's fine. They will shrink as they cook, but not a whole lot if you don't have very much fat in them. If you have used a fattier meat, they will probably shrink up more. And you'll have more grease in your pan, so be really careful when removing them from the oven. So I'm just going to fill these pans. And in fact, I could probably go quicker if I just did a whole bunch of these scoops. I'm always trying to find ways of making things more efficient, and then just rolling them all at once. So let's try that. Now I'm going to be baking these in a 400-degree oven. So I've got my oven turned on right now and preheating. So you'll want to have it preheating while you're doing this, but this will go by really quick. And just keep going, and I'll bring you back when I've got my meatball rolled up into balls. So I have all of the meatballs shaped out, and I decided to do 2 different sizes. So these are actually about 2-inch round balls, so they're nice and big. They'll be great for spaghetti. They'll be great for appetizers, real hearty meatballs, or just to have a couple, you know, on the side. Then I decided to make some that were more of 1 inch and 1.5 inches in size, because these will be perfect for soups, pizzas, casseroles, things like that. So these won't take as long to bake as these, so I'll just keep an eye on these. What we're gonna do is we're going to put them in a 400-degree oven, and we're gonna bake between 20-25 minutes. It all depends on your oven, the size of your meatballs. There's, you know, what kind of pan you're using. There's all sorts of things that will change that time. But basically, when the inside is no longer pink, you are good. And if you notice your meatballs are not getting browned, at the end you can put them under the broiler to get them a nice and brown top, so that they will be really flavorful. So I'm gonna put these in the oven, and then I'll be back when they're ready to come out. All right, they are out of the oven. The big ones took about 25 minutes to bake, and then these little ones came out about 20 minutes or a little bit before, and I tasted one and they are really good. Here is a part of the one I tasted. Really good texture. And the seasonings are perfect because my sausage had salt in it. I'm glad I didn't add any more salt than I did. The Parmesan, of course, is salty. Very good flavor. I taste the garlic. I taste a little bit of that kick of the pepper. Of course, the parsley and some onion. Those are really good. So while these were cooking, I've been chopping up some vegetables because we're going to make Italian wedding soup with some of our smaller meatballs. So I'm gonna show you what I've been doing here. I'm gonna move these out of the way here. Now you can see that this made quite a few meatballs, and they're nice big ones. If you have a big family and you wanna have a big bulk of these, you know, you might have to double this recipe. For Andy and I, and then the boys coming home sometimes, this will last us 2 to 3 months, depending on, you know, what we're eating. And so these will freeze just fine for that amount of time. And then I'll make some more probably in 3 months or so. So I usually make them several times during the year. I don't want to make them too, make a big batch and have it in the freezer too long. They do not, they do get a little freezer burn on them if you have them in there too long. I could put them in the airtight or the vacuum sealed packages, and that would keep them better, but I usually just put them in Ziploc bags. I will freeze them pretty much like this, just set this in the freezer, and then I can just pop these into a Ziploc bag and freeze them, and so they're separate, and just pull out what I need when I need them. So these are really good. I hope you give these a try. I'm gonna get these pans out of the way, and then I'll bring you out and then I'll bring you back and show you what I'm doing over here. Okay, I've got those cooling behind me, and so we'll just get those all cooled down. Of course, the ones that we're going to use for our dinner tonight don't need to be cool, but they'll be cooling down because we're not ready to add them to our soup yet. So if you don't know what Italian wedding soup is, it is a soup that I guess came from Italy. I don't know, but it has little meatballs in it and spinach or some kind of green, maybe kale or other greens, and then a little bit of maybe celery, onions, carrots, and then they usually use a really tiny little pearl pasta, and I forgot the name of what that is, maybe couscous, or some little tiny pastas in there. Since we're getting ready for a snowstorm, I do not have any little tiny pastas. I do have, you know, rice. We could substitute rice. I could break up spaghetti and make it small and put it in there. You could use regular size macaroni or something too. That would be fine. But I was thinking, I think I will go ahead and substitute that a little bit of pasta for some barley, pearl barley, and I think that would taste really good and be a good healthy choice. So what I've got here is I've chopped up about a little over a cup of carrots, 2 stalks of celery. I don't know if you can see that. 2 stalks of celery. I'm getting ready to chop up this onion that I had frozen. You're gonna need about a 1/2 cup of chopped onion. Again, you know, soups do not have to be measured exactly, because basically a soup is something that you make when you have leftovers. That's where it started. You take your leftovers, throw them all together, add some broth, and you've got you a great soup. So, you know, don't worry about the amount. And again, substituting things out, you might find that you like it better without something in it. So I'm just rough chopping this onion. We like onions, so this might be a little more than a 1/2 cup. And then it calls for about 3 cups of like baby spinach or something, and that's fresh. And so you'd pack it down and get about 3 packed down cups. Now, I freeze my own spinach in the early summer, and this one is thawing right now, but as you can see, these are full spinach leaves that what I do is I blanch them in boiling water for just a few minutes, pull them out, put them in cold water. Then once they're cool, I form them into these balls like this. I just push them together into a ball, and I set these balls into muffin tins, put that in the freezer. Once they are frozen solid, I pull them out and put these little balls of frozen spinach in a Ziploc bag. And then anytime I need spinach, I just pull out what I need. And it is very easy to use that way. So it is a great thing to do if you want to know how to freeze your spinach from your garden. This comes in so handy. You know, you want to make some spinach dip, grab one of these. You want to add some to a soup. You want to add some to a souffle or a quiche. Real easy. Scrambled eggs, real easy. So basically, all of these are full leaves that have just been pressed together. So I don't want to put these in whole. I'm just going to kind of break them up a little bit and then give them a nice rough chop. That way they will be bite size. And I won't add these until close to the end because they've been cooked once when they were put into the boiling water, and I don't want them to overcook and lose all their nutrients. I also don't want them to fall completely apart in the broth. I like to be able to see them. So I'm going to get these chopped as well. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring you over to the stove, and we're going to whip this up really, really quickly. It's easy to put together. The hardest thing is just letting all of your vegetables cook and making sure everything's done. Your meatballs are already cooked. You're basically wanting your carrots, your celery, your onions, all of that to meld together and make a really good flavor. So I'm also going to get a clove of garlic. I'm going to add that. And let me think of what else. I'll have some beef broth. Now you can use chicken broth, that's perfectly fine. I already have some beef broth open, so I'm just going to use the rest of that and then open another jar as well. So I'll bring you over to the stove and we'll start cooking. Okay, let's get cooking. The first thing we're going to do is add about a tablespoon of olive oil or some kind of oil into the bottom of our pan. I just have an enamel coated cast iron bowl, and it is oval, so if you're looking at it thinking that looks odd, this is an oval one. We're going to start by getting our onions and our celery. and our carrots all into the pan. Let's get the heat going here. And we want to make sure the onions become translucent and the celery will get softened up quite a bit. The carrots will cook somewhat, but they will get more of their cooking in the broth, and that's just the way we like it. So let's also add a little salt and pepper. And this is just to taste. I'm not going to add any salt right now because I have my beef broth and I'm not sure how salty it is. So I'll wait until I've cooked my soup and then taste it and add salt at the end. So I will bring you back when this is sauteed down and we're ready to add the next ingredients. All right, it looks like our onions have sauteed down. Our celery is getting pretty well cooked. We've got a little browning around the sides. That's going to add some good flavor. Now let's add our broth. Now we're going to add about 4 cups of broth. Remember, you can do beef or chicken or vegetable broth too. That would be fine, whichever kind of broth you want. And if you find that you don't have enough after you've cooked your soup, or since I'm doing barley, I'm not sure if it's going to soak up more of the liquid. I may need to add a little water to it, but we'll just play it by ear. Like I said, soups, there's not an exact amount. You just make it the way you like it. So now that we have our broth in here, that's going to start boiling here in a second. I want to go ahead and add our pearl barley, and I've got a little less than half a cup here. And again, you know, do what you like. You can use rice, you can use a small pasta, you could use a regular size pasta. It's not any big deal, but traditionally it was the little tiny pearl-sized pastas, couscous, something very small. I am also going to add now some of my ground up oregano, and that is a half a teaspoon. So we're going to start with that. If you have fresh parsley, we're going to add that at the same time as we add our spinach. But if you don't have fresh, you can use just your plain dried parsley, and you could add that now to help it kind of marinate in the broth. Remember, our meatballs were not Italian style, so we're adding some of that seasoning to the base of the soup here now. You could just use a tablespoon or a tablespoon or 1 teaspoonful, whichever you like, of an Italian seasoning. That would be fine too, but it's up to your taste. So I'm going to now let this simmer, and probably about 20 minutes, maybe a little less, because we'll still add the other stuff and let that heat through. Probably about 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and we'll see how that barley's cooked. We'll see if we need to add any more liquid and taste it to see if we've got enough salt. So I'll bring you back when we're ready to add the spinach and the meatballs. And I'm bringing you back real quickly because as I was getting ready to clean off my cutting board, I realized I hadn't added the garlic. Now, I didn't want to add the garlic at the beginning with the onions and celery and the carrots, because I didn't want it to become burned at that time. I was planning on adding it right before we added the broth and letting it fry up for about a minute in there. But since I forgot, we're just going to add it now, and hopefully that flavor will get incorporated into our broth. So this was 1 clove. Oh, no, I think this was 2 cloves of garlic. If you don't have garlic cloves, you can use garlic powder, the minced garlic out of a jar, whichever you like. But that is used to taste. So however much amount you want would be perfect. So now I'm gonna let you go and bring you back when everything's cooked through. Okay, this is cooked for about 25 minutes. And I did have the lid on. Looks like the pearl barley is probably just about ready. So I think we can go ahead and add our meatballs. I think I'm getting you guys steamed here. So you can add however many meatballs you want. I'm just going to drop several in there. And if we have leftover soup and no meatballs, we can add some more meatballs from the freezer. So I'm going to drop those in there. Let those start heating up and letting out their juices into the broth. I'm also going to be adding my spinach, and this is probably going to be a lot of spinach. But I'm going to go ahead and use it because it's healthy. We need it. When you get old, you need your spinach. And then some parsley, and this is about a tablespoon of fresh parsley chopped up. And you can just add dried parsley in place of that. So we're going to stir this. And I do think I'm going to add just a little bit more water because it is pretty thick as far as not having a lot of juice. So let me get a little water. The pearl barley will soak up quite a bit of liquid. And I don't have to worry about that water because we've got those meatballs in there and they will flavor that up just great. Now, if you want to add a little bit of crushed red pepper, you can. I think I'm just going to add just a dash. Just a really tiny bit. Not much. And I think I'm going to add just a little more water. Just to make sure those meatballs can swim around a little bit. All right, I'm going to put the cover back on and I'm just going to turn this down to a simmer and probably simmer for about 10 minutes. I'll bring you back when that's done. Okay, I think we're ready. Let's take a look and see what we got. Yep, that looks really good. I'm going to taste it and see if I've got enough salt. Since I've added some water to it, it may need a little bit more salt. And if there's anything else, I'll let you know what I'm needing. I think that's perfect. I don't think I'm going to add any more salt. If we want more salt, we can salt our own. I'm going to put some in a bowl and I'll show you how we would serve it. And there's a piece of spinach that I didn't get chopped up real good. Trying to get a little bit of everything in there. A couple meatballs, a few more carrots, a little more juice. Now, you could eat it just like this, or you can put some Parmesan cheese. If you have the big flakes of Parmesan, that would be really good, in any kind of Parmesan. Or you can use like an Italian cheese, and I've got some Italian cheese right here. Let me set this down and grab it. Okay, so here is some shredded Italian cheese, and it's got some mozzarella and some others in there. And you can just let it heat and it will melt on there and it will be so delicious. And I tell you what, I don't know why I don't make this more often. It is really, really good. So be sure you give this a try. You're gonna love this. You might have noticed right over here, my bread is all done as well. I just pulled it out a few minutes ago, I think right before the soup, about 10 minutes before the soup was done. And it is going to be a great addition to our soup. I'm looking forward to this meal. I know Andy is. He came in really tired after moving sheep and getting all the animals ready for the snowstorm. It hasn't started snowing yet, but we are still in for a large amount of snow. And if we get it, I'll see if I can add some pictures to this video. I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing. I would really appreciate that. Also, don't forget to like and share. That also helps me out a lot. And if you want this recipe, I will put it at the end of this video. It'll be a picture of it, so you can take a screenshot of it. I will also post it on Blue Rooster Farm Facebook page about 2 days after the video comes out, so you can get that there. Also, if you're interested in the French bread, that is from a video that I made, probably a month or so ago. I think before Thanksgiving. And that was the blueberry French toast casserole. I showed you how to make your own French bread if you didn't have some that you wanted to use from the store. So you can always make your own, and it's really easy, and it's so much better than anything you'll buy at the store. And just like these meatballs, they are so much better than anything you would buy at the store. So I hope you enjoy this, and I hope to see you back here soon. Bye-bye.